One of the most popular questions I receive as a criminal defense attorney is, if I'm stopped by police and they suspect me of driving under the influence of drugs and or alcohol, what are my rights? Right number one, your right to remain silent. You do not have to testify. You do not have to answer questions of the police. Sure, you have to give them your license and your registration, but you do not need to tell them where you're going to or where you're coming from or whether or not you've had a drink or not. Simple responses to those types of questions. Sir, have you been drinking tonight? You can ignore the question. Or you can say, sir, I decline to answer that. Or, sir, I'm not interested in answering you. Second question. Sir, where are you coming from or where are you going? Personal business. Pretty simple. You answered the question. Sir, what have you been doing earlier in the night? Are you under the influence? Again, you don't have to answer any question. I recommend to everybody that you keep your personal business personal. You have no right, the officer has no right to force you to answer those questions. Simply don't answer them. Don't get into a long conversation. Hand them your driver's license, hand them your registration and insurance, and go about your business. Well, he's not going to let you go about your business, is he? We all know that, right? So what's he going to do? Sir, I think that you may be drinking. I think you may be impaired. I'd like you to step out of the vehicle. Well, you have a duty. You have to step out of the vehicle. Sir, I'd like you to do some field sobriety exercises. Are you willing to do them? Now, they may not say it that way, but that's the gist of what they're saying. You have a right to refuse to do the field sobriety exercises. Any exercises you do will be held against you in a court of law. But guess what? If you don't do the exercises, what do you think the odds are that you're going to be arrested? 99.9%? You got it. Yes, you'll be arrested because the officer is going to say that he smelled the odor of alcohol. Your face was flush. Your eyes were bloodshot. That's what he's going to say. Now he arrests you. Well, you go down to the BAT facility, the breath alcohol testing facility, and what happens? Sir, I'd like to read you the Florida implied consent, which is a long bunch of big words and confusing things that most folks don't understand unless you have a law degree, and some folks who have one still don't understand it. And they basically say, are you going to give a breath test, yes or no? You have the right to refuse. It's voluntary. However, keep in mind that in the state of Florida, and the state attorney will be more than happy to tell you this during your trial, driving in the state of Florida is a privilege and not a right. Translation, if you're in a jury trial, if he didn't give a breath, he was probably guilty. Nope, that's not what it means, folks, but that's what they'll say. But the most important thing for you to know is that if you refuse to give a breath, your first time refusing to give a breath, the Department of Motor Vehicle will suspend your driver's license for a period of 1 year. If it's a second refusal, it's 18 months. You have to make that determination of whether or not you're going to give a breath. You have to make the determination of whether or not you're going to do field sobriety exercises. That's your determination. You make that decision. I can only tell you what your rights are. If you refuse to do the exercises and you refuse to get a breath, you're arrested. Now let's say you gave the breath and it was under 0.08. Does the police officer unarrest you? Obviously not. What he then does is he asks you for a urine test, and then he tests your urine to see if it has any drugs or alcohol. Well, guess what? You may have had a drug a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. That still may be in your system, and that may be admissible against you in a court of law to determine whether or not your normal faculties were impaired by drugs and or alcohol. There's a lot going on in a DUI. The simple answer to your question, do I need to give a breath test? No, you don't. It's your right to refuse. Do I need to do the field sobriety exercise? No, you don't. It's your right to refuse. Keep in mind, most likely 99% of the time, if a police officer smells alcohol on you or believes that you're impaired, he's going to arrest you either way. Whatever you do, is evidence that's going to be used against you in a court of law. Evidence that I'm going to have to sift through. So think about what your rights are and make your own determination if you're pulled over. The simple answer to everything is never drink and drive, never do drugs and drive. Obviously, it's unsafe. It's unsafe for you. It's unsafe for everybody. Don't do it. But also, you need to be aware of your rights. Police officers are arresting way too many people when they're not under the influence of drugs or alcohol because it's a subjective test. Those are your rights. Thanks for listening. Hope I helped you.